Back with another video. I love being able to create this content lately. I've been enjoying it so much, being able to share my experiences, providing tips, providing advice, because of course we all can learn from one another. So I really hope to provide valuable content. That's why I'm working, hard behind the scenes, trying to get my words together even before I hit record, because sometimes I start stuttering. It's like I forget how to speak English, but maybe it's just a lack of being accustomed to it, but that's okay. That's why we're learning and we're growing. So today's video, of course, I want to share a little bit of behind the scenes in my first market and what I learned about the process and tips, of course, that I can provide for you as well if you haven't done your market yet, or if you're just looking to learn a little bit more information. And so you'll see a little recap of my first market so you get an idea of what it looked like behind the scenes. So because this was my first market, I did have to go out of my way to purchase a lot of items as a first time crafter. That included my tent, the tables, all the decorations, the banner. A lot of these things had to be custom or I had to use different websites. These are the two tables that I got. They are both a 6 foot, so a really good decent size. I'm waiting on the tablecloth as well. So for every item that I did receive, I made sure to inspect it. For example, the banner. The next item that I got is my banner. I have the items that I make listed. You can't see it obviously because it's folded. It has my logo. And then under I do have my socials as well, so very helpful and for advertising. Apart from getting all the setup pieces, I also was focusing on the products that I would be taking to the market, getting that ready and set up. I bought these little frames to put the pricing. You'll always hear about that. You want to make sure that your pricing is visible, and that's what I try to do. One of my favorite things was preparing this pegboard. Definitely was a lot of thought behind it, but because I have a lot of small products like keychains and pouches, I knew that I would have to take a pegboard so I could have a nice display for my products. Otherwise, they would just be laying flat on a table. And did a practice setup at home, and that helped me to get an idea of what I should take. This was at the actual day of the market, driving up, finding my spot, and then having to set up all my items. Here I have a lot of boxes, but I'll be touching up on that point later on in this video. I try to work as quickly as I could. I did get there on time, so it's very convenient, especially, as a first market. Meanwhile, I was there. I did try to keep myself busy, because you're sitting there for hours. So I worked on my little space, setting it up, making sure checkout was easy. There was like 30 minutes left of it, so some people were already packing up. I stayed a little bit just to see if any more people would show up, but I think this market turned out really well for my first one. I was really anxious at first, but thank God everything went well and if not better. That was a quick little video behind the scenes now to provide some tips for you. So my first tip would be to make a list of all the items you expect to need for your first craft market. Most importantly, things like a banner, the tent that you're going to be using, any chairs, any tables, those are some of the most important things. Everything else you can go to the store to get it. Things like a tent you would have to order online. So you want to consider, how much time do you have before the market date, because you don't want to wait till the last minute and then you end up with a cheap product or something that maybe doesn't match your aesthetic. Now, of course, because it's a first market, you would be learning from it. So it's okay, if you get the most basic thing at first, but over time you can always improve that. For sure, you want to get the most important things, which are usually the bigger items or custom items, ahead of time. My second tip would be to make sure that you have all the information that you need for the event. Know exactly what place is it, if it's like on a college campus or something, what section would you have to go through? Do you need to bring an ID? Do you need to bring cash to pay any fees? You want to get all this information ahead of time, because if you wait to the last minute, you might not be able to get into contact with the event coordinator, because you got to imagine like they're also busy, trying to plan everything else. So imagine you're sending them a message the day before, the night before, they may not be able to respond back to you. And of course, that could discourage you. What time do you need to see somebody specifically when you get there? Just knowing how to navigate that situation will definitely make it less stressful for you. And especially, during first markets, you're thinking about a lot of things. So always try to plan before on that area. My third tip goes along with the second one, which is to make sure that you arrive to the market on time. So, you got to figure out parking. Is there a specific walking distance? All this takes time. When you're unpacking your things, you're going to see that you want to have everything set up before the event is supposed to start, right? You don't want to be last minute scrambling trying to get your things together. Meanwhile, everybody else is already set up, right? That can make you look bad, or the event coordinator could be looking at you a little bit strangely. Now, you can practice your setup at home, but I feel that if you're arriving on time, that's going to give you, a little bit more freeway to readjust your setup. If you feel something could look a little bit better, it is better to be there early than to get there late and realize, like, I'm scrambling trying to finish this up. My fourth tip as well relates to the third one, which is that in the items that you're going to be taking, try not to have too many boxes for so many different things. The majority of the time, you're going to have to carry them from your car to go to your spot. Sometimes in some events, you can park right in front of where your tent is going to be set up, and that can be convenient, but it's not always going to be like that. So, in an event where you do have to walk a certain distance, even if it's not too long, but still you have to be carrying your merchandise, that's why I wouldn't recommend taking so many different boxes. Instead, what I would recommend is that you get a large box or a large bin. It could be from somewhere like Lowe's or the Home Depot, whatever's close to you. Walmart can also have some as well. So, like a large bin where you can stuff in a bunch of different items so that your items don't get, mixed up, especially if you have small products. Like I have a small, keychains and pouches. What I would do is I would separate the different categories into bags. So I would have a bag for keychains, a bag for pouches, and so on and so forth. And the whole point of that is that even though all your items would be thrown into one bin, you can still have them sorted, in different bags. It could be different color bags. Whatever method you decide to do, you could even do Ziploc bags, if you don't have that much inventory for a specific product. Just finding ways that you don't have to take a whole bunch of boxes, because again, that adds to the weight as well. And when you're carrying something bulky, you can only carry so much. But if you have bags, that makes it a lot easier to, be able to compress everything and just keep it in one box. I would also suggest that you take enough inventory. You can never have too much. Again, you won't really know what sells well until you're actually doing markets, and even then, every market is different. So just take enough inventory of the different items that you have. If you have way too many colors, like for me, I don't always take all my keychains because I have over 20 different styles, and that's a lot to keep track of. I'll probably take like 15. I do limit that a little bit, but from those 15, I take sufficient stock of the product. I hope that makes sense. Because it's better for you to have more product left over than to be sold out and then the customer loses interest. They're like, oh, do you have something similar to this color? And then you got to be like, oh, I just sold the last one. You don't want that to happen. You want to have sufficient in stock, even if you end up taking a lot of it back home. But again, having more is better than not having enough. And then in my final point, I would just say do not be discouraged, by what you see around you. Maybe you see another vendor is selling a lot more product than you are. I know in our headspace it could be natural to be like, why are they selling a lot more? Like I feel like I have good products too. But there could be so many factors involved in that. It could be something like the event coordinator maybe didn't, do a lot of promotion, so it's only a limited amount of people that are going. Everybody has different interests. Everybody is going to gravitate towards different things. And if anything, it's also a learning opportunity. If you feel your setup can be improved, which when you're doing your first one, there's always going to be something that you can find. You can always improve that later on. You cannot be discouraged by the very first one. It's going to take several markets for you to actually learn your audience, to know how to interact with the people. And actually, I could add onto that point as well. This can be a little bit confusing and something that I'm still learning myself. There's some people that they don't really like a lot of conversation. They kind of just prefer to look around. They're a little bit more mellow, and I feel like I would be that kind of shopper too. And then there's other people that are a little bit more conversational. They do want to have a little bit more of a conversation. So you honestly just have to pay attention to the customer. Are they making eye contact with you when they come across your booth? Or are they kind of just like looking down a little bit? So those would be all the tips that I would provide for today. Of course, there's a lot more information, but I didn't want to keep this video way too long. I know that there's other video creators out there who are going to provide, similar information, but I really hope from this video I was able to include something that maybe you haven't heard before. It's natural to think man, I should have done this different, I could have done this better. But we've all had to go through this process for all of us who do markets. So it's just a learning process. Don't be discouraged, and I hope everything goes well for you. You can leave any other comments or questions that you have down below. I would love to read through it, see what your experience was like. And yeah, I hope to be making another video soon and see you in that one as well. So make sure that you are subscribed because I have a lot more content that I could share as well. And have a great day.